There's something fishy going on here.
LeBron James reportedly exploded after whispers tied Paul George's suspension to Bronny. Paul George got caught, 25 games, $12 million gone. He blamed mental health medication. Shaq and Barkley called it fishy on national TV. Bronny's name got dragged into it. What really happened behind closed doors? Paul George's 25-game suspension. LeBron James was furious. Not the usual sideline frustration, not the subtle eye roll, not the passive-aggressive post-game quote. We're talking about a full-blown, locker room-shaking, legacy-defining eruption. Because according to insiders, what happened behind the scenes after Paul George's 25-game suspension sent shockwaves through the NBA wasn't just about a violation. It was about Bronny. It was about a private family battle being dragged into the spotlight. And it was about what LeBron allegedly called a betrayal you don't come back from. The most shocking part? The comments that triggered this storm weren't even originally about Bronny. They were about mental health, about medication, about a suspension. But somewhere in that firestorm of speculation, commentary, and coded language, fingers started pointing. And LeBron noticed. If you think this is just another sports headline, you're missing the bigger picture. This is about legacy, about fatherhood, about what happens when locker room politics collide with family loyalty. And by the time we get to the moment LeBron reportedly confronted Paul George, you'll understand why some insiders are saying this changed relationships across the league. Let's rewind. On January 31st, 2026, the NBA suspended Paul George 25 games without pay for violating the league's anti-drug program. The suspension hit immediately. That same night, the Sixers played the New Orleans Pelicans without him. George was 35 years old. He was in his second season with Philadelphia. He had 16 years in the league, 9 All-Star selections, 0 prior drug incidents of any kind. The suspension came from a positive drug test under the NBA-NBPA anti-drug program. This is the program that covers substances like cocaine, opioids, and certain stimulants. It is separate from the steroids and PED program. Reports confirmed this was not a performance-enhancing drug violation. A first offense under this program carries a standard 25-game ban. The league did not say what substance was involved. The news broke on TNT before that night's games. Shams Charania reported it live, laying out the core details for the Inside the NBA crew and the audience at home.
This is a highly unusual and stunning development, Ernie, for one of the league's really great players in the past and someone of his caliber.
Charania confirmed that George told him directly this was about a mental health issue, not a physical one. George said he took an improper medication during treatment and accepted full responsibility.
But Paul George told me today in a statement that this occurrence happened for Paul George with this test that led to a 25-game ban due to an improper medication for a mental health related issue, not a physical one.
George released a full statement through Charania the same day. He said he had been seeking treatment for a mental health issue and made the mistake of taking an improper medication during that process. He said he takes full responsibility for his actions and apologized to the Sixers organization, his teammates, and the fans. 4 nights before the suspension announcement, George had played one of his best games of the season. He scored 32 points with 9 three-pointers against the Milwaukee Bucks on January 27th. That game became the center of a fan theory that spread across Reddit and social media. The idea that the league flagged him because his performance looked suspicious. That theory gained traction online, but had no official backing. The money George lost was not small. He forfeited roughly $11.7 million of his $51.7 million salary for the 2025-26 season. That works out to about $469,692 per missed game. He would not be eligible to return until March 25th, 2026 against the Chicago Bulls. That left the Sixers with about 10 regular season games after his return.
He's going to be eligible for the last 10 games of the 76ers season, and in total, guys, this is going to cost Paul George almost $12 million.
On the court, the loss was real. George had been averaging 16 points per game in 27 appearances, shooting 38.2% from 3. He was the team's 3rd leading scorer and their most versatile two-way wing. He defended the perimeter, created shots as a secondary playmaker, and spaced the floor next to Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. When all 3 played together, they outscored opponents by more than 7 points per 100 possessions. Philadelphia was 16-11 in games George played. They were 10-10 without him. But here's where it gets complicated for the Sixers as a business. George's forfeited salary counted only half. against the luxury tax under CBA rules, saving the team over $5 million and dropping them from more than $7 million over the tax line to roughly $1.3 million. That gave the front office room to maneuver at the trade deadline without shedding other salaries. Some fans and media members noticed that timing and questioned whether ownership saw the suspension as convenient. That speculation had no proof behind it, but it added another layer to the conversation. Coach Nick Nurse said George had shown great leadership and that nothing seemed off beforehand. Embiid called replacing him impossible. The organization publicly backed George's mental health explanation and said they would support him. So the situation was this: a 16-year veteran on a max contract in a playoff push, suspended for 25 games over a substance the league refused to name. His explanation pointed to mental health treatment gone wrong. His team lost a key player but saved millions in tax money. And the internet was already running with theories about what he actually took. That's when the TV cameras turned on. Shaq and Barkley go at Paul George on national TV. The loudest reaction came from TNT's Inside the NBA set. Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley did not hold back, and their comments became the most debated part of this entire story. Shaq spoke first. He acknowledged George's talent and what the suspension meant for the Sixers' playoff hopes. But his tone was sharp. He made one point clear: every player in the league gets a booklet. That booklet lists every banned substance. It tells players how long each substance stays in the system. It spells out the testing schedule.
They give us a booklet on what to do and what not to do. They give us a booklet.
Shaq was not speculating about what George took. He was making a point about process. After 16 years in the league, with 3 to 4 random tests per year, a veteran should know exactly what he can and cannot put in his body. The rules are not hidden. The resources are not hard to find. Every team has medical staff. The league runs a player assistance program. There is a detailed list of approved and prohibited medications.
They also give you inside the booklet how long it takes to get rid of something. So, I don't want to elaborate what he was doing or what he was doing, but, stuff like this should not happen.
That was Shaq's line in the sand. He did not question George's mental health struggles. He did not mock the idea of seeking treatment. He questioned how a player with that much experience could end up testing positive for something without knowing it would be a problem. Then Barkley picked it up and pushed the conversation further. He said he does not joke about mental health. He said players should not suffer, but he also said something was off about the whole thing.
Now, I don't joke around about mental health, but if you're taking some for mental health, that's got to be an outlier to the NBA.
Barkley's argument was essentially this: if the substance was truly for mental health treatment, then the NBA's policy should make an exception. Mental health medications should not be treated the same as recreational drugs or performance enhancers. If they are on the banned list, the league should carve out what Barkley called a hall pass for players who are getting legitimate psychiatric treatment. But Barkley also made it clear he was not fully buying the story as presented. He used the word fishy more than once. He pointed to the contradiction. If the medication was genuinely for mental health, why would it trigger a 25-game ban? Either the policy is broken or the explanation does not tell the full story.
But we don't need any players suffering from mental health. If they got a pill out there that can help you with that, you should get a hall pass.
And then the closer from Barkley.
But this sounds fishy.
Kenny Smith added his own angle from the desk. He questioned the logic of a system where seeking treatment for a mental health condition could result in the same penalty as using a banned recreational substance. If the league has expanded its mental health resources, which it has since the 2020 bubble, then why hasn't the testing policy caught up? That's a fair question. The NBA's anti-drug program was originally designed in 1983 to address the cocaine crisis that was tearing through the league at the time. It has been updated through collective bargaining agreements over the decades, but its core structure still imposes stiff, uniform penalties without automatic carve-outs for therapeutic mental health needs. Players can apply for therapeutic use exemptions, known as TUEs, which allow them to take otherwise banned medications with prior approval. But the process requires documentation, prescription oversight, and advance filing with the league. If George was self-medicating, taking something without going through those steps, then the violation stands under the current rules regardless of his reasons. And that's the tension that Barkley and Kenny were both pointing at. The policy treats all violations the same, whether you're chasing a high or chasing stability. Similar cases, like Bobby Portis's recent 25-game ban for the pain medication tramadol, show how prescription drugs can trigger violations if mishandled. George's situation likely falls in that same zone, a substance that may have been medically appropriate but was taken without the proper paperwork. Shaq and Barkley were not calling George a liar, but they were saying the story, as told, left too many gaps to accept at face value. And when two of the most recognizable voices in basketball history say that on live television, the conversation shifts. It's no longer just a suspension, it's a credibility test. Meanwhile, one of the biggest names in the sport said nothing at all. LeBron's silence and the Bronny connection. LeBron James has not publicly commented on Paul George's suspension or his mental health. Claim as of late February 2026, no interviews, no press conference remarks, no social media posts, no tweets, no Instagram stories, no podcast appearances. Searches across news outlets, broadcast archives, and every major social platform turn up nothing from LeBron on this topic. This matters because LeBron is himself one of the NBA's most prominent mental health advocates. He has spoken publicly about family pressures, the weight of scrutiny, and the importance of wellness throughout his career. He has used his platform on political and social issues repeatedly, from police reform to voting rights to the China-Hong Kong situation. LeBron does not stay quiet on things he cares about. When he is silent, it is a choice. That silence sits in contrast to Shaq and Barkley's vocal commentary. Three of the biggest icons in NBA history responded to the same event in three completely different ways. Shaq went at George on the accountability angle. Barkley questioned the story while still advocating for policy reform. LeBron said nothing. There are a few possible reasons. He may be respecting George's privacy during a difficult personal moment. He may be focused on his own Lakers season and choosing not to get involved in another team's controversy. He may be deliberately avoiding the topic because any comment, positive or negative, would become its own headline and distract from both his play and his son's development, because that's the other thread running through this entire story, Bronny James. Let's be clear about one thing first. Bronny James has no confirmed incidents of drug use, no failed tests, no suspensions, and no substance-related violations of any kind. The NBA's random drug testing protocol has never flagged him. Any connection between Bronny and drug use exists only in speculative internet posts, satirical memes, and clickbait framing. There is zero evidence linking Bronny to any substance issue. The closest thing to a health-related incident in Bronny's life was his cardiac arrest on July 24, 2023, during a USC practice. He collapsed, lost consciousness, and required CPR and defibrillation. He was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where doctors identified a congenital heart defect, a structural issue he was born with. He had corrective surgery, was cleared through rigorous medical protocols, and returned to basketball. A cardiologist who appeared on the Today Show explained exactly what happened in medical terms.
This is definitely an uncommon occurrence, but when it happens, it's emotionally jarring. And really what it indicates typically is that there is some underlying cardiac disease that was not picked up.
The doctor was clear. This was a structural heart issue, not something caused by external substances.
In most instances, whether that's a structural heart disease, that they were born with something wrong with the heart muscles or the arteries that supply blood to the heart, or an electrical problem that may be inherited genetically.
Some opinion pieces in the aftermath noted that PEDs can contribute to cardiac events in young athletes generally, but multiple reports explicitly stated there was no reason to believe Bronny was involved with any substances. The confirmed cause was the congenital defect, period. So when a title floats around suggesting Paul George snitched on Bronny's drug use, that claim has no foundation. George never made any statement about Bronny and drugs. Bronny has no drug history to snitch about. What George did do was publicly defend Bronny's right to develop as a rookie without being torn apart by critics. And that defense, in its own way, connected George to the LeBron-Bronny story in a way that the internet then twisted beyond recognition. Paul George defends Bronny and the nepotism firestorm. Paul George's involvement with the Bronny James narrative started long before his suspension. It started in June 2024, before the draft, when George appeared on his podcast and elsewhere to talk about the young prospect. George compared Bronny to Drew Holiday and Derek White, established role players known for doing the unglamorous work that wins games. He praised Bronny's willingness to do whatever his team needed without chasing star moments. He talked about his savviness, his defensive instincts, and his playmaking feel. George had been watching Bronny since AAU. This was not a casual take. When the Lakers drafted Bronny 55th overall in 2024, making him and LeBron the first father-son duo in NBA history, George reacted with genuine enthusiasm.
That's dope. I think people hate it on it, like they're not looking at it from like what that means to Bron.
George saw what a lot of people chose to ignore, what this moment meant to LeBron as a father, not as a brand, not as a business move, as a dad who gets to suit up next to his son.
Like, that's dope. I get to play with my son. Like, you know, and as big as his legacy is, like, that's part of his legacy too. Like,
But George also acknowledged the other side. He said the argument about merit is fair. He said it's a lot to put on an 18-year-old. He recognized the pressure without dismissing it.
what?
Yeah, and I do think the argument is fair, like from the other side of, hey, has he really, you know, earned it from his own merit?
Then came the January 28, 2025 game, Lakers versus Sixers. Bronny logged a season-high 15 minutes. He went scoreless, 0 for 5 from the field, with 3 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. He was tasked with guarding Tyrese Maxey, one of the fastest and most explosive guards in the league. The Lakers lost 118-104. The criticism that followed was relentless. Fans questioned his readiness. Analysts questioned his minutes. Some questioned whether he belonged in the league at all. George addressed it on his podcast. He did not sugarcoat it, but he did not pile on either.
Everybody's going to get criticized. Yeah, he was a 55th pick, but he's also the son of the best or one of the best players to ever play the game of basketball.
He acknowledged the unfairness of the situation, how Bronny is expected to produce at a level that no 55th pick would normally face, simply because of his last name.
It's unfair to some degree. You don't allow him to kind of navigate and find himself. This is a kid we're talking about who's trying to find his way in the NBA and trying to live out his dreams.
George then pointed to something nobody else had done before him in NBA history. Bronny is playing alongside his father.
He's trying to find the NBA game. He's trying to figure this out while doing something that he can say no one has done ever that played before him. No one has played with their father.
The nepotism debate around Bronny never stopped. It started when he was named a McDonald's All-American, where scouts and evaluators privately said other players got passed over because of his last name. It continued at USC, where he averaged 4.8 points in 25 games as a freshman. It escalated when the Lakers drafted him, despite those numbers. And it peaked again in January 2026, when Bronny received 2-player votes for All-Star starter, finishing 44th among forwards. DeMarcus Cousins and Chandler Parsons speculated on their podcast that LeBron or family allies influenced those votes. Parsons called for public ballots to prevent embarrassment. Stephen A. Smith laid out the core tension on First Take. He said he respects LeBron as a father who loves his son, but he also said LeBron's public declaration, "I want to play with my son," put a target on Bronny that Bronny did not create for himself. The scrutiny is not going away. Every missed shot gets dissected. Every good game gets questioned. Bronny exists in a space where underperforming confirms the bust label and excelling triggers rigged accusations. There is no clean middle ground when your father is LeBron James. The bigger picture, mental health, policy, and perception. Paul George's suspension and the Bronny James controversies may look like separate stories. They are not. They are both products of the same forces: fame, scrutiny, policy, and the gap between what we say we care about and what we actually tolerate. George has been one of the NBA's most visible mental health advocates since 2020. During the bubble in Orlando, he told the media he was in a dark place. He said anxiety and depression were affecting his performance. He described feeling checked out. After the bubble, he partnered with BetterHelp to fund up to $3 million in free therapy sessions. He wrote op-eds encouraging athletes, especially in the Black community, to seek help. He talked about seeing a psychiatrist and how therapy changed his perspective. That history is what made his suspension statement credible to many people. He said he was seeking treatment for a mental health issue and made the mistake of taking an improper medication. If you know his background, that tracks. Many common treatments for anxiety and depression, stimulants like Adderall, benzodiazepines like Xanax, or newer approaches like ketamine-assisted therapy, appear on the NBA's banned substance list unless a player files for a therapeutic use exemption in advance. The Road Trippin' podcast hosts pushed back against the mockery that followed the announcement. Richard Jefferson, in particular, took a firm stance.
The crowd for help for his mental health. And I didn't like some of the jokes that went around it. You know what I'm saying?
Jefferson was not interested in the comedy takes. He called out the TV personalities and internet commentators who turned George's situation into punchlines.
If the man say he's battling mental health, he's battling mental health.
He then brought context that most people were ignoring. The pressure George faces in Philadelphia is unlike anything he dealt with in Oklahoma City or Los Angeles with the Clippers. The expectations that come with a max contract in a city that demands results are a different kind of weight.
I mean, Paul George hasn't played in the city with this type of pressure. Like playing for the Clippers, he wasn't getting that type of pressure. Playing for Oklahoma City, not this type.
And then there is the body. George hyperextended his knee in preseason before the 2024-25 campaign. He missed games. He was on minute restrictions early in the 2025-26 season. His body was not cooperating with what his mind wanted to do, and that internal war, wanting to prove you are still the player who earned a $212 million contract while your knees and your confidence are fighting against you, is exactly the kind of thing that drives someone toward treatment they might not handle properly.
He hyperextends his knee in preseason, right? So from the start last year, it looked like, man, so he's trying to build his way back up. Then he gets hurt again.
That weight of wanting to perform, wanting to justify the contract, wanting to be the version of himself that earned 9 All-Star selections, that does not go away just because the roster around you is talented.
So now he's just got this weight and pressure of wanting to prove, because that's how psycho we all are.
The NBA's anti-drug program was built for a different era. The original framework came out of the 1980s cocaine crisis. It was designed to catch players who were putting substances in their bodies for recreation or performance enhancement. It was not designed with the understanding that a player might test positive because he took an anti-anxiety medication without filing the right paperwork first. The policy has been updated through collective bargaining, but its penalties remain blunt instruments: 25 games for a first offense, regardless of context or intent. Barkley's call for a hall pass on mental health medications points to a real gap. The league has invested heavily in player wellness since the bubble. It expanded its player assistance programs. It brought in more mental health professionals. It stopped testing for marijuana. But the testing protocol for other substances has not evolved at the same pace. If a player is genuinely seeking help and accidentally trips a violation, the system punishes them the same way it would punish someone using cocaine at a party. George's case, whether you fully believe his explanation or share Barkley's skepticism, exposes that gap in a way that is hard to ignore. The privacy protections that keep the substance secret also keep the public from understanding whether the punishment fits the situation. And in that information vacuum, speculation fills every corner, from Adderall theories to ketamine guesses to flat-out accusations of recreational use that have no evidence behind them. Bronny James lives in a parallel version of the same problem. He has no drug violations, no failed tests, and no substance issues of any kind. His cardiac arrest was caused by a congenital heart defect confirmed by doctors. But the internet does not operate on confirmed facts. It operates on proximity and assumption. Bronny is LeBron's son. George is a high-profile player who got suspended. George once said nice things about Bronny. Therefore, in the logic of viral content, the three must be connected in some scandalous way. They are not. What connects them is something less sensational, but more important. Both George and Bronny are dealing with the consequences of being famous in a system that has not figured out how to handle the human side of its own rules. George followed the wrong process for getting help he may have genuinely needed. Bronny carries a last name that guarantees every stumble will be magnified and every success will be questioned. Neither of them created the structures that put them in these positions, but both of them have to live inside those structures every day. As George serves the remainder of his suspension and prepares to return for the final stretch of the Sixers season, and as Bronny continues grinding through his second year under impossible expectations, the questions they raise are not going away. Should the NBA update its drug policy to account for mental health treatment? Should legacy players be evaluated differently than prospects without famous parents? Should the public accept a player's explanation when the league refuses to share the details? Those are the real questions. Not whether Paul George snitched on Bronny James. He didn't. Not whether Bronny is on drugs. He isn't. The real story is messier, less clickable, and more important than any title could hold. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.